Summertime is soccer time in America, and Major League Soccer is seeking a place in the sun among the world's top leagues. Commissioner Don Garber brings us up to date on big changes and ambitious plans for MLS.
I don't know how big the league will get in the short term. In the long term, who knows?
Across the pond, Wimbledon is in full swing. But where are the American men? Former Grand Slam champion Jim Courier shares his insights on the business of U.S. tennis.
We have trouble, frankly, attracting our best athletes into the sport.
From backhands and forehands to hand-to-hand combat, mixed martial arts fights for a foothold in America's #1 market.
We don't have to be in New York. We don't have to be. We're doing just fine without New York.
And the golf world battles over the belly putter. So what's the big deal?
The educational process and how this rule is implemented, probably going to need a couple of years to get that message delivered.
Summer's here, and the time is right for Sportfolio. Hello, I'm Rick Horrow, and welcome to Sportfolio, Bloomberg's weekly inside look at the business of sports. Over the last 5 years, Major League Soccer has experienced some of the steadiest growth in professional sports, building stadiums, increasing attendance, and enhancing its profile by adding international superstars like David Beckham. But in May, the league took a quantum leap forward when it announced plans for its 20th franchise. FC New York City will give the MLS a team in the nation's largest market. It also brings powerhouse ownership, as the club is a joint venture between Manchester City of the English Premier League and baseball's mighty New York Yankees. MLS Commissioner Don Garber says the franchise will be transformational. He recently visited our studio, and I asked him why.
Well, you know, this is the center of the universe in so many ways, Rick. And we've had a team here, the New York Red Bulls, for many years. There's, over a dozen professional sports teams playing in the other leagues. We needed something that we thought could break through some of that clutter. Now we'll have a rivalry, something that drives a lot of the passion in our sport around the world. New York Red Bulls, New York City FC, trying to capture the hearts and minds of all these soccer fans that live here in the New York metropolitan area.
And on the economic and historical theory that the last expansion price drives future values, that $100 million number doesn't hurt either, does it?
You know, what an amazing story, Rick. $5 million is what Kraft, Anschutz, and Hunt put into the league less than 20 years ago. So to think about how far values have grown over the last near 2 decades, this is professional soccer. It's very established, television deals, great sponsors, and now 2 teams in New York, one who just paid a $100 million expansion fee.
It's also using the best of breed and best practice. Manchester City, New York Yankees, you have a cost containment structure in the league, theoretically, but those groups of people aren't used to being told how to spend money. Are they going to play well together? You know,
it's a good question, Rick, and I think about this. You have Man City that's owned by some folks in Abu Dhabi that are spending quite a bit of money in the Premier League. Won the English Premier League last year. The New York Yankees, who spend a couple of dollars on their roster every year. But they believe in the MLS system. They believe that soccer is a growth sport in America, believe that our best years are still ahead. We need to have control over what we spend, how we spend it, how we invest, so that we can go and continue to build the sport in our country. Our unique single entity structure is something that all owners are bought into, buy into, and Man City and the Yankees have bought into it as well.
Man City will talk about international promotion. The Yankees will talk about keeping players off the injured reserve list, since they haven't done it very well this year. Let's talk about the stadium plan. The published reports, over $300 million. We all understand that's not easy to do anywhere, let alone New York. Tell us how that's progressing.
Well, we had spent almost a year working with the City of New York trying to build a stadium in Flushing Meadow Park. The league, very similar to what baseball did in Washington, D.C. with the Nationals Park. The league was leading that effort. We got very, very close to finalizing a deal. We then ultimately sell the team to Man City and the Yankees. They'll take that over now. Randy Levine, CEO of the Yankees, very well connected, former city official with the Giuliani administration. They're going to find a beautiful facility. They are committed to spend over $300 million on that stadium, and I think it will be one that will be a crown jewel in our league, along with Red Bull Arena and the Home Depot Center, now StubHub Center, and many other facilities.
Expansion. Atlanta is building a stadium where they say it's capable for soccer. That's not the point. The point is that there are a lot of people who are talking about soccer in their long-term plans. Beckham has that issue in Miami where he's looking for a home, and there are other opportunities, the Orlando situation. Do you have a timetable for expansion, and how flexible are you in that?
Well, we have no specific timetable, Rick. I think one of the things that we've learned being the last major league in is take your time, get it right, go into the right markets, get the right owners, get the right facilities. So, and you mentioned all the hot prospects, Orlando, Miami, Atlanta, great ownership groups, all with smart facility plans. There are other areas in Texas that we've been intrigued with and will continue to look at. I don't know how big the league will get in the short term. In the long term, who knows? This is a big country. We obviously have 3 teams in Canada, so we are playing across both countries. 300, 400 million people across those 2 countries. Who knows how big it can be? But we're going to go about it in a very smart and very careful way.
And as an entrepreneur, there's obviously different ways to approach dealing with markets. But if you find the right market, the right stadium solution, the right political support, then you will help take the next step in that market if it makes sense for soccer.
You know, that's true. You know, there are so many things with us that you would expect if you were going to look, wouldn't expect when you looked at a map that these would be successful MLS team markets. Portland, relatively small, not a lot of competition. Former Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson and his family own that team. Total sellout, 14,000 on a waiting list. It is the place to be when you go to a Portland Timbers game. Similarly in Kansas City, relatively small market, new ownership group, beautiful buildings, selling out every game. So there are a lot of different things that need to happen to make soccer work. It isn't necessarily just big markets with large ethnic populations drawing big TV audiences. You got to be with the right owner, right facility, and ultimately the right fan support.
Diversification. You created a new entity called MLS Business Ventures. What's the mission for that unit, and what initiatives are we going to expect?
So 10+ years ago, we started a company, Rick, called Soccer United Marketing. That company is arguably one of the leading commercial companies in the world. 2 years ago, sold 25% of that company to Providence Equity. Soccer United Marketing, which represents MLS, but also a wide variety of other soccer properties, U.S. Soccer, CONCACAF, the Mexican League, will morph that into a larger entity, MLS Business Ventures. Just hired a guy named Gary Stevenson, a 30-year sports business vet, used to work at the Pac-12, the NBA, PGA Tour, one of the founders of the Golf Channel. Gary, Kathy Carter, the president of SUM, will try to continue to grow, really, hopefully explode the soccer market, both here for Major League Soccer owners, but also around the world.
Don Garber, great stuff as usual as we head toward the World Cup and MLS Cup and all. We want to have you back. Is that okay?
That would be great.
Thanks for joining us on Sportfolio.
Bye-bye.
According to the Tennis Industry Association, tennis participation in the U.S. grew 4% in 2012. So why is American participation shrinking in the ranks of the top men's seeds at Wimbledon? Coming up, tennis great Jim Courier discusses the state of the industry and the grand money being paid out at Grand Slams.
But in fairness, the players should participate in a larger slice of that pie.
We'll serve and volley with the champion when Sportfolio returns. Welcome back to Sportfolio. What the Masters is to golf, Wimbledon is to tennis. A mix of the toughest competition with the grandest tradition. It's the kind of spectacle that makes everyone want to get out on the court and hit around. With this, on his way to a very special tennis exhibition, more on that later, is Jim Courier, former pro tennis champion, current U.S. Davis Cup captain. Jim, thanks for joining us on Sportfolio.
Great to be here.
93 at Wimbledon 20 years ago. 4 of the top 10 men's seeds were Americans. John Isner this year, the only American in the top 20. What's wrong with the American tennis program in the game?
Well, I tell you, it's more about what's right with the rest of the world. You know, tennis is so much more popular versus other sports globally than it is, and we have trouble, frankly, attracting our best athletes into the sport. We get some of them, but not all of them the way a lot of other countries are. And instead of the kids from around the world coming to America to learn from our coaches and our training methods, now those methods are everywhere around the world. So I think it's going to continue to be difficult for us to dominate the way that we did. But you never know. You could get lightning in a bottle, and you could get a group that I was lucky enough to be a part of, like Sampras and Agassi and Chang and Martin and Washington, all Grand Slam winners or finalists in the same era.
Is it an institutional thing, too? Does tennis have to make a larger commitment to get the kids out, or is it that superstar that's the Pied Piper?
Well, I think there's a combination. I think the USTA should be applauded for their efforts. They've put a lot of resources behind 10 and under tennis, which is a great program. It's like Little League baseball. So we've shrunk the courts. We've got softer balls. It makes it easier for kids to be successful. There's a lot that goes into making a tennis player. It does take resources. It does take effort, and it takes heroes. And we've been blessed with a lot of American heroes over the years.
And you're one of them.
Hardly.
Well, listen, the bottom line is now you win your reputation in majors. And speaking of the majors, every major has renegotiated an increase in prize money. Wimbledon up 40%.
Right.
Collaborative effort with the Tennis Association and All England Club in Wimbledon. Is that good for the sport, that players are getting more leverage over the respective tournaments and more needs to be done?
Well, I think it's fair. I think that the majors have been making a lot of money, and they deserve that too, because they are the four pillars of our sport, and those are the ones that create all the opportunities for the players. That's where the players' brands are created. But in fairness, the players should participate in a larger slice of that pie. That's what's happening now. And to their great credit, the top players, led by Roger Federer, insisted that the bulk of those proceeds, the profits increased, would go towards the lower round players. So the players that lose in the first, second, and third rounds are making a lot more money, which is going to allow more players a little lower in the food chain to make a living. And that's a real big piece of this pie.
Refreshing. The top guys are using their leverage to get more money for the middle and bottom guys. Huh?
It's very, very unusual in tennis's history. You would have never seen that in other eras. It's such a one-on-one sport, you know, eat what you kill. So to have someone with Federer's credibility lead the charge and say, yes, we want more, but we want it spread out more at the bottom so more people can make a living. We're making plenty. We don't need to make more at the top, but we need to increase the ability for more players to have jobs, successful jobs in tennis. They've done that.
We're not going to talk about who wins or loses at Wimbledon, but we're going to talk about the facility, the retractable roof at Wimbledon.
Yeah.
It's the farthest thing from your mind to be playing with a retractable roof. You look at the weather all the time. Does that detract from the ambiance, or does it increase profitability enough where it matters?
Well, it increases certitude that we're going to get the matches in. We're going to finish on Sunday. We're not going to get stuck where, unfortunately, the U.S. Open has been the last 4 years, which is playing on Monday instead of Sunday in the finals, which is a nightmare for all the international broadcasters who have that expectation to provide the big finals. It's certainly better for the fans. They know that if they buy a ticket at Wimbledon, they're going to see tennis on center court. In years past, you could go out there, and if it was rained out, tough luck. You're out of luck. Yeah. So it's much better for everyone, players, broadcasters, fans, everybody wins across the board.
Over the last 5 years, HSBC has brought a little bit of Wimbledon to New York. You've been involved in that program. Tell us about it.
Well, HSBC is the official banking partner of Wimbledon, so they're able to bring the official Wimbledon experience here into Manhattan. So we've set up a beautiful grass court down at Madison Square Park. Monica Seles and myself are out there. We're hitting balls with people who can just come and sign up to play. It's free to the public for 3 days. There's a real live grass court right in Madison Square Park. They have a big jumbotron with a mini Henman Hill, which is the famous grass hill at Wimbledon, where the spectators will sit there and watch the big screen off of Court 1. So they really are replicating Wimbledon, obviously on a smaller scale, but in a high trafficked area in Manhattan. So free strawberries and cream. All the little details are done just right by HSBC in this process.
You're eligible for the Senior Golf Tour 7 years?
That's right.
The rumor is you're going to try. What's the story?
The rumor would be incorrect. I think you have to be good to actually play on the Senior Golf Tour. You probably have a much better chance than I do, but I do get to play on the Power Shear Series, which is our senior tour for tennis players. So I know where my home is. You know?
Jim Courier, thanks for your candor. Enjoy the tournament. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rick.
Okay. Jim Courier was only 22 when he made it to the finals of Wimbledon in 1993, and he became the youngest player to reach the finals of all 4 Grand Slams, a record that still stands. Coming up on Sportfolio, a change of pace. Mixed martial arts is one of the fastest growing sports in America. Can it keep thriving without access to the country's biggest city? And here's our Sportfolio stumper. What was the total prize money at Wimbledon in 1968, the first year of the Open era? We'll share the answer when Sportfolio returns. Here's the answer to the stumper. Total Wimbledon prize money in 1968 was around $63,000, or about $422,000 in 2013 dollars. This year's Wimbledon purse, $34 million. Mixed martial arts has definitely become a heavy hitter in the world of sports. In August, the UFC series will get a huge boost in exposure when it's featured on Fox's new national cable sports network. But for all its success, MMA events are still unsanctioned in the state of New York. Can a sport thrive without a piece of the Big Apple? Rachel Crane went to find out.
It's brutal. It's bloody. It makes lawmakers queasy. And 20 years in, it's just getting started.
It's the fastest growing sport in the world right now, and it's going to be the biggest sport in the world.
The sport, mixed martial arts, the league, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, and their ringleader, Dana White.
This is it.
We couldn't seat Obama here tomorrow night.
If the President of
I'm
the
not
United
kidding you.
States
I'm
wanted
not
to
kidding
come
you.
to your event tomorrow,
We couldn't seat Obama. He'd have to sit on my lap.
Bold claims from a bold man. And the last frontier of the UFC's domination, the entertainment capital of the world.
do you wish we were sitting in Madison Square Garden right now?
Yeah, for me personally, to be sitting in Madison Square Garden holding an event, yes, it's a personal milestone achievement, another thing that we've accomplished in the sport.
One minor issue. It's not exactly street legal. New York is the last state left to have banned professional mixed martial arts fighting. And the UFC is in the midst of a heated battle with unions to be able to fight in the Empire State.
We don't have to be in New York. We don't have to
Really?
be. We do not have
It's
to.
the media center of the world, though.
It is, but we're doing just fine without New York. And we're putting on fights. We're sitting in New Jersey right now, 20 minutes away from New York. We could keep doing fights here. We don't have to get New York. Do I have to do it? No, we don't have to. We are fascinated by who the toughest guy in the world is. And you're intrigued, and you know about him. You know who he is.
And that mantra has contributed to the meteoric rise behind the business of mixed martial arts.
You guys bought it in 2001 for $2 million, and now it's valued at over $2 billion.
Yeah, we bought it for $2 million, invested another $44 million into it before it really started taking off. This thing wasn't allowed on pay-per-view. That's how bad it was.
Some politicians have likened it to human cockfighting.
I mean, that analogy altogether, even back in the crazy days, is ridiculous. So anybody who says anything negative about the sport hasn't done their homework and is very uneducated about it.
All right.
They can't fall out and hurt themselves. It's here for safety.
So it seems as though White has emerged on top when it comes to MMA's morality war. The sport finally breaking through broadcast barriers.
Let's talk about that deal with Fox. A $700 million deal, and yet your biggest fights are still on pay-per-view. Why?
Let's put it this way. Fox got us cheap.
Really? $700 million ain't cheap.
People buy 14 fights a year on pay-per-view. But we're able now, through this Fox deal and all the different platforms that they have, to bring our fans tons of free fights.
You seem to know something about the super consumer that other people don't.
I was that guy 20 years ago. I was that guy sitting up there. I know what fight fans want, and I know what they want to see. I know what they like.
Tell me something about your balance sheet that would shock me.
This thing is much bigger, much, much, much bigger than people ever realize. I don't care what color you are, what country you come from, or what language you speak. We're all human beings. Fighting's in our DNA.
In June, Connecticut became the 49th state to allow mixed martial arts events. New York is now the only state in the union to ban the sport within its borders. Still to come on Sportfolio, another controversial ban. Why does the belly putter have the golf business in a tizzy? Welcome back to Sportfolio. It can be hard to get golfers in an uproar, but mention the belly putter and you're likely to start a pretty spirited debate. Should PGA Tour pros be able to use this equipment? And what does the controversy mean for the tournament at your local club? Dom Chu and I both spent time at the U.S. Open investigating these questions.
The reason and rationale behind Rule 14-1B is we were really trying to preserve the traditional essence of the golf stroke. It's always been, over 600 years, swinging the club freely away from the body. That's the golf stroke, and that's the inherent challenge of this great game. And anchoring, we thought, undermined that challenge, and perhaps, if left in the game, would change the very essence of the game.
Any concern from you about the long putter? What's it done for you, and are you worried about the ruling from the USGA?
No, I'm not worried. I mean, they know where I stand with, with what they've said, and, hopefully, there'll be some kind of a compromise.
You've been outspoken, and the organization has, about the great belly putter controversy. How's it going to end?
It affects 2 to 4% of the people that play the game in this country. That doesn't sound like a big number, but it's close to 1 million golfers. And those people are part of the core golfers that play a lot of rounds, spend money at our facilities, and I think that's really the primary reason we were so outspoken. But in the big picture, when this thing's all over with, the PGA of America and the USGA have got to work in tandem along with the PGA Tour to grow the game and promote the sport in this country.
And uncertainty is very difficult for business as well as the amateur golfer. So chart a course to resolve the belly putter controversy and give me a timeline.
Well, I think, that's a great question, because I think the misconception that a lot of amateurs might have right now, and even PGA professionals who are going to be charged with implementing this rule change in 2016, is that you're going to be able to create some kind of a local rule or a local condition of competition at your facility that will allow the use of the anchored putter. That's not the case. If you do that, that is classically bifurcation of the rules. So when this rule goes into play, it's into play. There's no gray area, and I think the thing that amateurs need to understand, if you continue to use the anchored putter and you're posting scores for a handicap, those are scores that are not recognized by the USGA for a handicap. So even if you think, well, I'm going to go ahead and do this and my club's going to allow it, but if I go play at a member guest or I go play at an event at another golf course, you can't take that handicap with you, even if you're taking a short putter, because it's not a valid handicap. And I think that's the educational process, and how this rule is implemented is going to be, we're probably going to need a couple of years to get that message delivered.
Operationally, the belly putter ban is already causing headaches, but how is it affecting the bottom line for manufacturers? Callaway Golf CEO Chip Brewer says, not as much as you might think.
The decision to ban anchoring has been coming for some time. So the effect of that ruling, we think, has already really been baked into the marketplace. If you went about 1.5 years ago, long putters, belly putters, they were the hot item in the putter category. But once that ruling was just announced that they were considering it, the sales really died off at that time. So we've got new technologies. One of them is called Tank. It's a heavy counterbalance putter, and it has been doing phenomenal. It is a replacement for anchoring. And for those that have been anchoring and they need to look at alternatives, look at the Tank.
That's it for this edition of Sportfolio. Many thanks to Don Garber, Jim Courier, and everyone else who took part in the show. And as always, thanks for watching. Visit Bloomberg.com for more Sportfolio video and more Bloomberg sports business coverage. I'm Rick Horrow. See you next time.